Hi, hello, and welcome to LX2 Codependency Coaching. I am Stella. We are recording on this un- unseasonably warm day. Anyway, I should just get used to the fact that things are going to be warm. It was almost 70 degrees yesterday, and I point that out just because it's curious to me how climate change is working, because it is. I don't know if it's working long term, but it is happening right now. Um, I have had a really good week, actually. Just trying to manage my energy and stay focused on the things that I can control, one thing at a time. I'm looking forward to a visit from my daughter this weekend, and looking forward to my birthday, which is in 2 weeks, where I will not be recording a podcast because I'll be going to Denver, which is exciting. I wanted to think about this idea. I have been thinking about this idea of tap or drain as it relates to our emotional experience. And I had heard it kind of randomly on, I think it was the Trevor Noah podcast, What Now? And the guest was asking, well, is it a tap or is it a drain? And I was very curious about this idea because they were talking about, investing their energy and their time into things. And if it brought them energy, if it was like a tap where they could tap into something and feel motivated, energized, excited, or if it's a drain. And I was thinking about this idea of drain and what things, drain our energy or just become this slow leak in our motivation and experience. And as I, did a little research, just basically typing into Google tap or drain emotional experience, I got some interesting feedback, and it made me think about how when we are working, especially on evolving consciously and changing, we start to pay attention to the relationships around us and the people and our experiences that either, motivate and bring us energy or bring us, joy or, excitement, whatever, or the things that are a drain. And really thinking about how drains work. Generally, they are on a decline and, kind of suck all of the motivation or excitement or experience. And so I was thinking about that. I was also thinking about how, we all generally are, getting through the week one experience at a time, usually, having to go to work or take our kids to school or get people ready in the morning. And then we have, our lunch experience, whatever that is. Some of us eat, some of us don't. I don't actually start eating for my day until about 2 o'clock. And then, I have dinner or whatever. But really thinking about all of the things that we experience throughout our day and how it contributes to our mental health. It contributes to how we are feeling about ourselves, about our lives, about, the things we participate in, and certainly our relationships. So I was thinking about those things, tap or drain, right? And really helping people to identify those things in their life that do motivate them or bring them energy or get them back to a homeostasis. And then what things are a drain, what things are weighing on our mind or our heart or our experience day in and day out. And as I was considering those kinds of that lens or perspective, really looking at, the kinds of things that we consciously choose and then the things that are happening, around us that contribute to that tap or drain situation. I was thinking about, obviously the things that are happening in the world and how much we participate in scrolling behavior that can be a drain, right? A lot of times we refer to it as doom scrolling. At the end of the day, let me back up just a little bit. Day to day, I start my day usually with some kind of movement and or going outside. And I usually have a slow build up to my day, which I'm very grateful that I have the schedule or the freedom to create a schedule to do that. And so I start with, just waking up usually before my alarm, even though I set an alarm every day. And I am grateful, right? I think about the things that I am grateful for. I look around at my situation or circumstance, the tiny dog next to me, or, even just my cozy space, my house. Thinking about, okay, like I know what I have to do today. Usually I will play the memory game of like, who am I seeing today in, my client list. And when do I start? Lately I've been working late into about 8 o'clock. So let me tell you a little bit more about my day. So I start with movement, either doing a strength workout or going for a walk. Then I make the dog breakfast and I make coffee. And as I'm doing that, really starting the intention of the day, thinking about, okay, what clients am I seeing? Really starting to recall, like, what was our last session about? What are they working on? What kind of mood I want to put myself in for the energy of the day, right? Starting to build that momentum of how I am going to approach the day. Now, you guys know that I make my bed first thing, brush my teeth, again, move around and make the dog breakfast, make myself coffee, get showered, get ready. Even in putting on my makeup and doing my hair and choosing an outfit for the day, really thinking about how to craft or construct my day so that I get the most out of it, right? I'm really starting to look at how I tap into the energy of movement and motivation and thinking about, what's going on. And I don't know, obviously, even though I've scheduled clients weeks in advance, what they're dealing with or going through in the moment. But even on my drive, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm very grateful for, the route that I take, which is usually, pretty free of traffic. I begin to think about, okay, when I get to the office, how much time do I have? I've added 10 minutes to my drive because of the new location that I moved to in November. And so all of those things are, again, tapping into that energy of movement and motivation. I'm really starting to get excited about the clients and the conversations I'm going to have today. What that is going to look like for my morning. Yesterday was a good example because I had 3 kind of back to backs. One of them was a new client situation, and that was unknown to me, right? Not sure what was going on. I could check the notes. I could check the measures on the app that people use for that particular client base. But really starting to go, okay, like I know that the 10 and the 12 I know a little bit about the situation, a little bit about the conversation, a little bit about the client. I know the new client is completely new to me, that dynamic. I'm not sure, exactly what's going on in their experience. But as I was driving in, I was thinking, okay, well, like I'm excited about the new situation. I'm excited about, tapping in and connecting with those clients that I have had before. And then I work from home on Tuesday and Wednesday. So also looking forward to my afternoon, starting to think about what my note situation is going to look like, how I need to get some things done. I've got some extra paperwork I need to finish up. But as I am considering or crafting or creating an idea or plan for my day, I start to think about how I can get all of these things done, right? Wednesdays typically is trash the day before trash day. I generally do my laundry on Wednesdays. So there's a lot going on. But as I am moving through my morning, considering how I'm going to plan out my time, it does keep me motivated to continue and have that energy through the day. Now, some of the things that drain that motivation or shift that experience is if something happens unexpectedly, right? If I drop coffee, for example, this happens, or there's construction, or there's an accident. As I was coming home yesterday, I had an hour to kind of get home, get some food before my client, and there was an accident on Alameda. And so traffic kind of built up and I started to worry about, okay, like minutes are passing, things are happening, people are driving a little bit erratically. Again, they're not familiar with the experience or don't see the accident ahead of time. So those are things that drain me. Anything that happens unexpectedly or off book that could be potentially negative starts to drain that energy. I start to think about my time. Am I going to have time to have lunch? What does that look like for my client in the afternoon? And then I go back to, okay, it's an online client. It's okay. I just have to plug in and that'll be fine. I have food at the house. I have an idea of what I'm going to eat. Get back on track for that motivation, right? Tapping into the flow and movement of the day. When things happen unexpectedly, even if they're good things, those can be a drain on our emotional experience because we don't know what's going to happen. And I talk a lot about that discomfort of uncertainty because a lot of times that creates extra mental tasks that we need to kind of figure out. And it's difficult to start to plan or craft like how I'm going to address this. That problem solving energy it does take a little bit more, right? It maybe slows us down a little bit to start to figure out, okay, how am I going to address this if I don't know what the next step is? And often when something happens that we don't have any control over, it kind of stops us in our tracks a little bit. And then we start to get that nervous energy or that anxiety of, I don't know what's going to happen. It could be unsafe. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. Like those kinds of things. If it is, grief related, that definitely slows us in our tracks. And if something happens or has happened before now, that can start to drain that motivation that we have to move forward. I know for me, and I've, definitely shared with you guys, like right about the time of year when my dad died, which was May 1st, I tend to get a little bit more pensive, a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more aware of how my life has changed in the last 37 years. Those are things that tend to slow my brain down. If something has happened more recently, it can be really daunting to think about or to have that experience of like, my life was so different a year ago, 6 months ago. A lot of times clients will ask the question out loud, how did I get here, right? And it's helpful to process that with someone rather than have it drain completely to where you're not able to move or not able to get motivated, to where you are feeling numb or not engaged, to be able to process that with someone else, either a therapist or someone close to you. They can actually remind you of, one, who you are, and two, how you've been able to get through things, and three, how to then get you back on that train of motivation to move forward. It's interesting, and I've talked about it before, where I've had clients who are like, I just feel numb. I've got no fucks to give. I don't feel connected to my life. I don't feel in control of those things. And that does drain us to feel even more, kind of stuck and less motivated to move forward or uncertain of what that's going to look like. It's interesting to me when I start to have those questions of like, okay, how did you get here? Really thinking about what works for you and how do we then move forward in this uncertain or difficult situation. Grief can look all kinds of ways, and it's not just, loss through death, but it's, changing a job or changing a relationship or having a different experience than the one that you had planned for. And those all drain us. They definitely shift our motivation because a lot of times when something unexpected happens through no fault of our own, somebody changes their mind, a company is bought or sold, or you have to change office, like all of those things then create some uncertainty, create like not level ground. So when we think about moving forward, we have to then slow down and be a little bit more cautious, or slow down and be a little bit more tender or aware of our own experience. And it's helpful then to either set some boundaries or communicate your needs, or even start to have that awareness of like, what are my needs in this situation? One of the things that will drive people to therapy is, a change in their experience, like I said, with relationships or jobs or whatever. And so then it's helpful to process that with someone who can remind you of who you are or what you have done in the past. It is pretty significant to remind people how they have gotten through every hard thing that they've experienced before now. And to remind them, remember when you couldn't or didn't think you could move forward, when you felt very stuck or stagnant or unsure of what it was to move forward, and then you did. And that is probably the most motivating thing, to then have people go, oh, I forgot that I have been able to get through hard things before. I forgot that I have the ability to tap into the resource of my past experience so that I can move forward. And I may have to, cut some things off. I may not have the energy to engage the way that I used to in those things that I used to enjoy, that used to bring me energy, but I can then tap into, okay, how do I take care of me right now so that I can move forward, so that I can make those decisions, so that I can grow new skills and, new abilities, build some new tools to then navigate this uncertain or different situation or circumstance. It's interesting when you start to think about it in that way, right? Having to switch gears or pull back from certain things to then move on to the next situation and tap into the resource of my past experience, to tap into those memories, but also that muscle memory of how do I get through hard things. It's interesting, especially when people have the ability to look around and go, okay, wait, I am on solid ground. I do know what I have going for me. I do understand that I have been able to get through hard things before. And then you can, take that next step. Even if it's just creating one next part of it is detaching from the outcome or that feeling of this isn't fair. This isn't how it's supposed to be. I don't know what to do now because all of the plans that I had to move forward have shifted, right? The ground has shifted below me and I feel disoriented to this new reality. That can be a drain. It can be, stifling to be like, well, I don't know what to do next, right? And so it's helpful to have somebody else in your experience to remind you, hey, you have gotten through all these other hard things. Yes, this is different and it sucks and it's not fair and it's sad and it's hard. And you can move forward even just by taking baby steps of taking care of yourself, right? Getting into that place where, okay, what are your big three, right? How's your sleep been? Are you eating well? And are you moving your body around? Well, no, I've kind of fallen away from doing that because I was distracted by, a sick kiddo or, new people are staying with me temporarily or whatever. Okay, well, how do we get back on track, right? We all have to eat. All humans have to consume food to have energy to move forward. So that's one thing. How do I rest, right? How do I make sure that I am getting enough sleep, whatever that looks like for you? And if my sleep is interrupted or I'm having a hard time going to sleep or I'm waking up because, perimenopause and I'm hot and my brain doesn't know what time it is, whatever, how do I manage that differently, right? Making people is also one of the things that is making people and then adding new people to your experience is one of those things that definitely is a drain on your sleep, right? But how do I navigate that? How do I manage it? Who are the experts? What is the wisdom I can seek out to have a better understanding of how to help this new person orient themselves to a sleep schedule, right? And then moving around, right? One of the things that I cannot advocate more for is moving around. And even if it's not in the traditional like exercise, go to a gym, used to call it the moving around room, as people would be intimidated by, I'm not a gym person. I'm not a gym person either. But definitely this morning I was grateful to do, 20 minutes of yoga and sit and stretch because I sit all day, right? That is my whole job. Or part of the big experience of my job is to sit all day. So I do need to sit on the ground and stretch and make sure that, my limbs are where they need to be and my joints are moving around. And so that's really helpful, right? Moving around is one of the best ways to get our motivation to tap into that, even just the power of movement, right? Anytime people have been injured or have limitations to their moving around, it does affect their mental health. And so when they can move around in a different way or accommodate for whatever injury they have sustained or gone through, it does make a difference. They can then tap into, how do I adjust to this new situation, right? Injuries are draining. It's interesting, right? When we think about like illness or injury, and then we have to slow down. Part of that is our body requiring that we slow down so that it can heal or repair itself. And so we have to allow that drainage or that, slowing of our motor system to be able to then accommodate, to heal, to grow either new parts or new skills to be able to move through that. And then, then we move differently and then we accommodate for it. But I do recognize that moving around is one of the biggest things to keep us, again, moving forward in a way that is helpful for us and contributes to our health and growing. Like I said, we all have to eat food. That's true. And we all need to recharge and sleep. The big three is something I look at often. If there are changes to that, then those are the things that we address so that we can create some level ground so that we can move forward. Being aware of what relationships are taps or drains is also something to pay attention to. And I talk to clients about, like, are you an introvert or an extrovert, or those of us who are ambiverts, a little bit of both, recognizing what experiences bring us energy and motivate us and what experiences drain us, right? I say often, like, to pay attention to how you feel before, during, and after an interaction with people. And if they are drains, then managing your boundaries, managing your communication, paying attention to your yes budget when you have those interactions, and then also recognizing what relationships or relationship experiences are taps that we are able to get energy and motivation from. And if it's just those, those quick phone calls or really scheduling time to spend with someone that motivates you, those are things to pay attention to and recognize who are the people in your life that bring you energy, or, that you can vibe with in a good way to then continue moving forward. And then pay attention to the people who drain you. Pay attention to those people where you feel exhausted after that interaction, or you feel frustrated, or it brings you out of character. Those are the ones to pay attention to, where you, like I said, either need to set some boundaries or maybe limit the time that you spend with them, and pay attention to who those people are in your life. Sometimes we need to recalibrate and recognize, if I'm feeling drained often with most of the people, is it them or is it me? And what can I manage, right? What is in my control to take care of? Those are all things to pay attention to. I'm feeling better. I think I've shared with you guys, like, starting in November, I usually get depressy. And then by February 1st, it shifts and I have a little bit more energy. What I paid attention to in this last, like, little depressy space was just slowing down and allowing myself to rest and not have to push so hard to get all the things done. I still did the things that I needed to do, but I did them more slowly, or I did them with more intention, or I allowed myself to rest, which is really helpful, because now in February, I have more energy and motivation. I am able to move through a little bit more easily. It doesn't feel so draggy, or there's not as much weight on me, physically and otherwise. I allowed myself to sleep. I allowed myself to, have some yummy snacks. I definitely moved differently. I think I shared with you guys, I wasn't doing my 2-mile walk/run every day like I have been for the last 5 years. I slowed down. I did more strength building. I did more yoga, which was definitely more helpful and conducive to me getting back to a place where I had more energy, where I could tap into those resources for myself. All right, there's your nugget. Thank you to everyone who has been watching on YouTube or, listening on all of the platforms that you can get podcasts. I'm super grateful. Like, again, it's interesting when I think about where we started and where it is now, and having, over 500 listens in a 30-day period all over the world, which again blows my mind. I'm grateful to every one of you who takes time to listen to this podcast, who then introspects and thinks about how they can manage themselves differently, the tools that they build and learn, and then sharing it with other people, right? Yeah, I am grateful all the time. If you want to get a hold of me, it's lx2.cod.coach@gmail.com. Again, you can reach me on all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube now. Yeah, thank you to all of you who are out there listening. There's your nugget. I will have one more podcast, and then, like I said, the 27th, I will not, because I'll be traveling. But I hope you have a great weekend, and, give yourself a little bit of extra love and get through, because life is still lifing and things are still happening. But managing your energy and being aware of whether you're a top or a drain, and what is tapping into things that motivate you and what is draining your energy. That's what you need to pay attention to this week. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.